Chapter 7 The Welcoming Party. The bunker was one large, long room. The ceiling was of wood slats, the walls of sandbags and heavy beams, and the floor of hard-packed earth. Much of the space was taken up by wooden bunk beds, odds and ends of other furniture, and a pot-bellied stove. An arrangement of tin cans connected together formed a stovepipe which disappeared up through a hole in the ceiling. Rainwater constantly dribbled down the thing, and there was a pair of muddy pools on the floor. Wet clothing hung everywhere, from the corner posts of bunks and from lines that had been strung up. There were 5 of us reinforcements, as we were referred to, in the place. Hal's, to my disappointment, was not among our group. I knew Jacob and Oscar well. Muscle-bound Meyer Fasnacht was among our group, as was a chirpy, undersized soldier named Willi. "Your luncheon is ready," a fat soldier in a filthy apron announced, his tone mockingly ceremonious. We piled our packs near a ceiling support beam. Then, still in our wet clothes, we lined up with our mess kits near where a large kettle bubbled pungently on the stove. "I hope what I have made is to your liking," the fat man said, as he and another man doled out bread and tea, then ladled soup into our bowls. "You look as though you have had a hard time of it, a long, hard walk in the rain," he laughed. "Have you had a long, hard walk, boys?" No one answered him, continuing to wonder at the strange way we were being treated, at the contempt the veterans had for us. We sat down at a greasy wooden table and began eating in silence. The tea was weak, without flavor. The bread was ersatz, made of flour mixed with sawdust, and was difficult to swallow. But the soup, of cabbage, carrot tops, and chunks of meat, was thick and good. Ravenous, I downed it all within short order, as did the others, and we were pleased when we were offered more. Even the tea, weak though it was, at least was hot, and the bread, although it tasted like soggy wood, was still filling. "There's one!" a wild-haired man suddenly shouted. His excited call captured the attention of all the veterans in the bunker, except the 2 officers wrapped up in their chess game. Armed with bayonets, clubs, and sharpened sticks, the motley bunch descended on a corner at the back of the place. Wondering what all the commotion was about, we made our way to where they were gathered. "There's a whole nest of them in there, I tell you," the wild-haired man chortled. He was on his knees, aiming the beam of a flashlight through the gaps in the wall of sandbags. "Ja, I think I see them," a big-nosed man began jabbing away with a long stick. "What's in there?" Jacob asked. "Rats," replied a rather soft-spoken soldier. "The walls are crawling with them. Killing rats? That is our mission in life in this stinking hellhole." "Good source of protein," said our cook, "and tasty." He laughed. It took a moment for what he had just told us to sink in. My eyes met those of Jacob, Meyer, Oscar, and Willi. Together we looked into the pot of soup and then to our near-empty mess tins on the greasy table. "Meat is in short supply," said the cook, with a wry grin on his face. "So we have to make do as best we can." "I like rat meat," I said, not wanting him to get the better of me. I fought off a sudden wave of nausea. "I've had it on a number of occasions." "I have too," said tall, lanky Oscar, his voice feeble and unconvincing. He started to say something else, then bolted from the bunker as the veterans laughed. Over the sound of their laughter and of the rain, we could hear him retching outside. The rat hunters howled, the cook loudest of all. Finally, snickering and wiping dumb grins from their faces, they returned to the attack. All business now, and very excited, the bunch of them began scurrying about along the wall, trying to peer behind it, now and then jabbing away with their various weapons. "You in there, you filthy beasts!" a huge, hulking man screamed at the wall. "Well, if you are, this'll kill ya!" He swallowed air, pressed his open mouth to a space between 2 support beams, and discharged a loud and long-lasting belch. "There it goes!" yelled another man, and immediately there was a flurry of wild jabbings and thrustings with various sharp instruments at the back wall of the bunker. Over the laughing and cursing there suddenly came a series of wretched squeals from behind the wall, and when the weapons were withdrawn they were covered with blood and gore. The men tried to extract the dead rat by yanking on its long, naked tail, but finding that the creature was too large to be pulled through the narrow gap, with great delight they commenced hacking it to bits and removing its corpse piece by piece. Another attack was then quickly launched in another part of the bunker. Sopping wet, Oscar returned. "Sorry," he said. "For what?" I said. Jacob patted him on the back. Cold, tired, and disgusted, the bunch of us began to idle about, wondering what we were supposed to do with ourselves. "Sir," I said, taking it upon myself to approach one of the chess-playing junior officers, "where would you like us to put our gear?" "Take any of the empty bunks," he replied without looking up from the game. "You will not be here long anyway," said his chess partner. Wondering what this comment meant, I put my pack at the foot of one of the bunks, then sat down and began removing my muddy shoes. "Hey, not that bunk!" The man in filthy long underwear was coming toward me with a bloody bayonet. "That's Lindemann's bunk. What are you taking his for?" "Sorry," I said, getting up. "I didn't know it belonged to someone else." For some reason, my response was greeted with snickering laughter, and a moment later the 5 of us newcomers found ourselves surrounded by rat hunters. "What made you think you had the right to take Lindemann's bunk?" the wild-haired man demanded. The man in the filthy long underwear moved to within an inch of my nose. He shifted the bulge of chewing tobacco from one cheek to the other. "Taking Lindemann's bunk was a real low-down thing to do, Dumkopf," he said, filling my nostrils with his reeking breath, grinning all the while. I stood looking at the man, not knowing what to say. That I and the other newcomers were being goaded and toyed with was more than obvious. But what was the big joke? What exactly was all this nonsense about? Uneasy, surrounded by this smirking, bullying bunch, the 5 of us were at a loss as to what to do. "Which bunks should we take, then?" Jacob asked, his voice cracking with nerves. "Well," said a man, scratching at a boil on his neck, "you can take Erhardt's or Ritter's or Klopp's. I guess it really wouldn't matter if you took Lindemann's." "I don't understand," said Jacob. "They're all dead." Mr. Long Underwear squirted a jet of brown tobacco juice from a gap between his scum-coated teeth. "What is there to understand about that? Ritter, Klopp, Gruber, Pedersen, Erhardt, and Strubel, they're dead. And Lindemann, too. We have enough bunks for all of you," a little man with vacant eyes said dolefully. "Gone to a better place," said Mr. Long Underwear, "as we all will, for our Führer." He clicked his heels together as his right arm shot forward in a stiff salute. "Heil Hitler!" One of the junior officers looked over at him with an absently disapproving look, then returned to his game. Mr. Long Underwear put a grimy hand on my shoulder. "Lindemann got it yesterday. Or was it the day before?" He turned to his comrades for an answer. "The day before," replied the wild-haired one. "Was he your friend?" I asked. "Haven't got any. It is unwise to have friends because they have a bad habit of getting killed. In some fashion or the other, everyone meets with an unfortunate accident." He suddenly cocked his head to listen. At first there was only a delicate humming somewhere above. Then the sound swelled to a monstrous drone. The bunker convulsed as a deafening crash drowned out every other sound. Jacob, Fastnacht, and Willi scuttled under tables, chairs, and bunks. Terrified, Oscar and I grabbed hold of a swaying support beam. I stared at the ceiling. Sand trickled down from the gaps between the planks. Black smoke poured in through a lookout slit at the front of the bunker, and chess pieces and cutlery danced off tables and clattered to the floor. Almost a direct hit," said Mr. Long Underwear matter-of-factly. Neither he nor any of the other veterans had bothered to take cover, with the exception of the sad-eyed little man. Shaking with fear, he was curled in a ball, near Jacob's feet, hugging himself and making strange whining sounds. The chess players were scrabbling around for kings and queens and rooks and pawns, bemoaning the destruction of their game. "Let's see, where was I?" mused Mr. Long Underwear, sitting down on a foot-locker and looking up at me. "Ah, yes. We were discussing the departure of Private Lindemann from this earth. 'Twas quite an ugly death," he said, raising his voice over the sound of a heavy detonation somewhere in the distance. "They say he was found pinned to the bottom of a trench by a 76-millimeter shell. The bomb fin, I'm told, protruded from his back like a ventilator, went right through his back and chest and then into the ground, but didn't explode." "But even so it killed him," the fat cook added with black humor. "He was here only a matter of hours," said the wild-haired man. "He was lucky. Lucky Lindemann. He got to die quickly." He gestured toward the bed where I had been sitting. "Go ahead. Take his bunk. Who knows? Maybe you'll be lucky too."